Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Culture Think Tank, where we discuss the trends and analytics of culture facing us today. Our goal, as always, is to help provide insights and best practices organizations and leaders can use to strengthen their cultures during today's new normal. I'm Will Lindstrom, and today is our weekly roundup where our panel of experts review the results of weekly polls that we take in every week. And joining me, as usual, are Rob Nielsen, CEO of All American Leadership out of Irvine, California, Cynthia Curiazis, the author of Amazon bestseller, Get Organized, Get Focused, Get Moving, and CEO of Productivity Partners, and she is out of Kansas City. And also joining us today is Delise Crimmins, CEO of Design Learning out of San Antonio. Delise will be joining us by phone, not video today due to some logistical issues. And today I'm very pleased that we have a special guest who has agreed to let us review his results of his C-SCAN poll, which has just been absolutely fascinating and a lot of fun for me to review. And at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Rob, who will introduce our guest.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this conversation as quickly as possible also. So I have known Ken Matheis for coming on a year now. And Ken is the founder of Complete Automation, a Michigan-based company just north of Detroit. Ken founded the company in 1982 in the filtration distribution business. It quickly morphed into manufacturing and has since morphed into other, I'm going to call it fluid-related industries. And with that, Ken, I'd love for you to just do a brief introduction of the company, your philosophy on people and culture, and then I think we should dive right into your results because they are fascinating.
Sure thing. Thanks, Rob. And thanks for inviting me today. I appreciate that. Quick note on our company. Complete is a group of 3 companies. We have Complete Automation, which is the largest part of our business. It is in the automotive liquid distribution systems, paint systems, sealer systems, all kind of liquids that go on the vehicle. We do work all around the world, around the globe, actually. We've got offices in several countries, 286 people working for our company. Complete Filtration, another division of ours, does filtration manufacturing, dust collection elements, and then we have a Complete Metal Finishing division in another part of the state in Michigan that does electropolishing for stainless steel for the food and pharmaceutical business.
So, as a 40-plus year company, you've always cared about your people, you've cared about your culture. We met about a year ago. If you could just speak to that real briefly, what caused you to decide that you needed to double down or do something more?
Well, as we were talking earlier, we as a family organization, we're my brother, myself, and my dad are in business together. We've always treated our people as family, and our family, of course, as family, but as well as our people that work for the company as family. We've always taken care of them like they were our own cousins, uncles, brothers, sisters, and that culture has always been there at the forefront of our business. Sometimes, you almost to a detriment, I would say. We're a little like you are with your family, right? You give them a little slack But anyway, we've always had that culture, and we've tried very hard to push that culture through the overall organization. When you get to be the size that we are now, and you got people working all over the globe, it's very difficult to stay connected in that way as a family. But when you all came in, when American Leadership came in and helped us get over that hump with regard to having folks buy into this concept of we're one team, we're working on one common goal as a group. There's several people in our organization, as I mentioned earlier, I won't use any names now, but that really bought into this concept of being able to change their mindset, change their people's mindset. And as I mentioned, it for some of them, it hit them right here, and it really blossomed after the first couple sessions that we had with your group. That people really started to get it, and they really started to expand on that and drill it down into the organization below their level. So it really took hold, this concept of mindset, the concept of family, the caring attitude that we use every day. It really changed the way that we run our organization and how we treat people. treating them, not that it was different than what we started at. It just, everybody started to buy into this concept and really expand on that concept, and it really resonated through the organization. I hate to even use this term, but like the coronavirus resonated throughout the U.S., it just resonated in our whole company just like wildfire. So it was amazing, the transformation when we got through those first sessions with our people.
And I think you said you're just under 300 now?
Yes, sir. 286 as of this week.
Perfect.
All being paid right now as well.
Perfect. So, Will, maybe this is a good spot to jump in and maybe give some high-level observations regarding the complete automation data that you received this week and compare it to the aggregate.
Sure thing. So just to give everybody a quick reminder, a quick overview of how the C-SCAN poll works. What it does is it focuses on how do we get and look at leading indicators that allow us to get a sense of how culture and how people are in the organization, and provide us insights that we can use to perpetually keep moving ourselves forward. Because culture isn't an inoculation. You just don't get a one-time vaccine and you're done. And so the way this breaks out is that we look at the connection index, which is a sense of feeling. How do people feel in the organization? And the performance index goes over needs. What are people needing in the organization, and how do those tie to the dimensions of culture? And what we've done is we've correlated the two. So feelings and needs. So if we understand what people are feeling, we can understand how people are needing. Now, what the connection index does is it really looks at, are people feeling more connected? Are they coming together? Are the feelings connecting? Or are people expressing feelings that are distancing? In other words, they feel disconnected from the organization. And obviously in today's environment, there's a big trend of distancing, which you can see in the data here against the aggregate, where 68%, the vast majority of people are expressing distancing feelings, with anxious being the top one, which I think is normal. But what is really amazing, and what's been a lot of fun working with the data, particularly for complete, is how connecting your organization is and how dramatically connecting it is. And I think if I had to summarize it in a nutshell, it is just reinforces the proof that if you focus on culture and it's something that you work on, that when crisis rise, everybody's able to bring together. So you can see here that from a average, 68% of every organization is currently expressing a distancing feeling, whereas only 27% is within complete. So the vast majority, almost 73% of the organization, are expressing connecting feelings, which is just amazing and really a lot of fun to look at. And if we look at the member summary, we can see which words or which feelings they're expressing. The number one is comfortable. So people feel very comfortable, they feel very confident, and that's showcased across manager, team manager, and supervisor. When it comes to distancing, you do have some areas of distancing, which I think is normal. People are feeling, and the number one is uneasy. People are feeling uneasy, which is totally normal. But the one thing where you are similar in all of this is looking at the leadership bias. And oftentimes you'll see a leadership bias. And what I think is interesting is that what we're seeing is the leadership bias is at the manager and supervisor level, where the managers and
can you outline what you mean by bias, Will?
Bias, good point. So what we look at as bias is we are able to compare what are the perceptions of the managers and supervisors as compared to team members. And by looking at the difference, in other words, if managers and supervisors feel that things are better than they really are, then they don't know, they're just not sensitive to challenges, and then maybe aren't as proactive as they should. And what we're finding is that at the senior leadership level, the alignment between team members and the organization and themselves is very close. Where we are seeing the bias, and you can see it here, is managers and supervisors on the aggregate are vastly more feeling connected to the organization, are more positive than team members in general. And yours inside your organization is similar. It's not as big of a gap, but you're showing that same kind of focus. which just raises an opportunity just to make sure that managers and supervisors are reminded to stay in touch and to keep doing the good work that they're doing with their team members. So that's what I like about this data, is you can kind of see it. And to Rob's point, as we've been looking at this over the weeks and months and years, is that some of the times this will shift, but in times of these, really staying connected to the managers and supervisors overall. And that's really it. It's just amazing what the data shows. Just to kind of summarize it all up, because I know we have a very short, the detailed breakdown basically just gives you a summary of what you should be working on. Like, here are the things that people are saying they're needing to address, for example, unhappiness. And you'll see the two things that people ask for are the greatest need are support and consistency. What's interesting about your data set compared to the aggregate is the support and consistency is around keep doing what you're doing. It's not I need it. It's actually you're doing it, so keep going. So I still need it. It's just on the positive flip side, which is why I think you see such a comfort level. And then obviously, if we do look at support and consistency, one of the biggest drivers, by helping with support, you'll be able to reduce a lot of trends. But when it comes to the dimensions of culture, it's really about alignment. For support, how am I aligning my communication? How am I aligning my planning and my clarity? So that's what we're really seeing. But I think overall, what was so much fun about the data and why I spent so much time making sure it was right was just how positive and what a great case study of working on culture, staying persistent, really highlights and almost accentuates the strength of what you've done in these difficult times. And at the same time also highlights where to keep doing what you're doing is going to be important, and in some ways is almost a challenge to keep the momentum going.
Right.
So if I could pause here for a moment, I've got a couple of follow-on questions for you, Ken. First, as you listen to Will's explanation of the data, anything that surprises you, anything that stands out for you that you'd like to comment on?
I think, as I was looking at the data, Rob, it is surprising because I'm very pleased to see that the numbers are where they are. However, on the flip side, I'm not really surprised, because I do, in communicating with my folks every day, you get that sense of what you're seeing in the data on a daily basis. Just as I was mentioning, the emails and the text messages I get from my folks, just the comments, thanks for what you're doing, boss. Thanks for being there for us. Thanks for doing the things you're doing. It reinvigorates me to keep doing what I'm doing, and it reinvigorates them to keep that connected feeling. So I think, this crisis, it really has, in some ways, the old adage, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I think that's a part of what we're going through, is that, we're all in this together. And from wearing masks at the office to being there for one another for, that first day back to the office, because we are an essential business. So we really technically never stopped. But when people come back to the office for their first time, it's a little uneasy, and being there together, going through that experience together was really, really powerful.
Well, so that kind of prompts the next question, Ken. Thank you for that. In many ways, you are kind of an example, particularly in that manufacturing space. A shining example of how it can be done right, and how you can get through this crisis effectively. And I was wondering if you could just highlight what are some of the specific things that you're doing. And I would start with communication and maybe move to safety, but
Sure.
On the communication side, how often are you communicating? How are you communicating? Who's communicating what? Some of those things.
Sure. Well, what I decided to do from another mutual friend of ours, Rob, is to do daily calls. We started that process on the 24th of March, the day after we had our statewide shutdown. And every single day I call in to just me talking and everyone listening. And it's 9:15 every single day. We have a call to express what is really going on, what is going on within the company, what is going on within financial. Am I going to get paid next week? Is the business healthy? Did we get our PPP loan? How are things going with people coming back to work? How are we going to start back to work? What are the things we're going to do to keep people safe when they do come back to work? So every single day we have this phone call, and I just lay out for the people what my feelings are, what the company is going to do, and how we really are a backstop for them. And we've given them that confidence that they have a job. And like I said, at our first call on the 24th of March, I said, folks, we got to get from this side to the other side of this crisis together. And you have to remain healthy, and the company's got to remain healthy for you to have a job when we get to the other side. So we're in this together, and we got to get to that other side. So we've got to do our part. You've got to do your part. And when you get called back to work, we'd like you to come back. But we have patience when we did that. And that was really, really difficult for a lot of my folks to have that patience to say, okay, hold on. We don't need everybody back tomorrow. And this fella or this gal has some concerns about coming back, or they've got an older family member that they're taking care of, or their mom they're taking care of, or whatever, and they can't come back right now. They don't feel comfortable doing that. So we had to step back a second and say, okay, let's have some patience with these people, not push them to come back, because that's not going to work. They're going to run. And so we as a group, we had to dial in that patience level, and it was difficult. But I just kept reiterating to my team leaders, have patience with your people. They'll come back in time. When they're ready, they'll come. And we're back up to, we've only got 20 people still out. We've got the rest of them are working every day.
So Ken, how did you balance having that high level of candor versus maybe spinning the story so that people heard what they wanted to hear?
I think it's just coming from the heart every day. It's that family environment we have. I just kept, waking up every morning saying, okay, we got to keep pushing this culture that we've created, that we've had since day one of the company. This family organization, we are a financial backstop for you all. We're for you and you're for us. If you don't work, we can't create billings. We can't bill customers and get money in to be able to pay you. So I just laid it out in those terms where I need you and you need me. So let's work at this together. And what do you need from me in order to feel safe to come back to work? I want to be on the leading edge of safety for our employees. And that's what I told our safety director, and we did a great job, and the whole team did, with just developing that philosophy of we're going to lead the way on safety for our people coming back. What we're going to do for cleaning, what procedures we're going to do. We're going to scan people's temperature when they come back. None of that was required, but we pushed that to the forefront to say we're going to be that company that takes care of you if you take care of us.
Outstanding.
That's what's resonated through the whole thing. And honesty is really a big part of that. When we didn't, we applied for our loan, and we were struggling with the bank to get our PPP loan, which obviously was a big deal for us. Not laying anybody off, paying everybody through this crisis. We decided not to do that, and it was obviously very important that we got that PPP loan to be able to maintain that through who knew how long this shutdown was going to go. So being honest with them every day. Hey, we're struggling with the bank right now with getting this PPP loan. Their system's not up and running. They can't even accept our application right now. So that uncertainty and that honesty, just laying it all out there, like we talk in our leadership, that vulnerability, you have to show that as well.
Speaking of vulnerability, so I know that's one of your core values. How has the integration of your purpose and your core values, how have they played into the culture that's evolved and these results that we saw from your people this week?
Well, the one team, our purpose statement, one team creating complete solutions. The one team concept, I reiterate that every day on the call. We're in this together. We're one team getting from this side to the other side. And when we get to the other side, we're going to be stronger as a group because of it. The values are empathy, integrity, ownership, and quality. And having that integrity for me to walk the talk that I'm laying out every day on the call, and the empathy to understand people they need time to come back. This fella, I talk to people on the floor every day, and when you talk to them, I'm taking care of my 85-year-old mother, and I really feeling uneasy about coming back to work. Well, don't come back. Stay home. I understand. I get that. You don't want to bring that home to your mom. I mean, geez, that'd be horrible. But so just that empathy to understand where people are coming from. Even some of our managers, they initially were a little uneasy about coming back to work. Their family members, their wife or their family members were uneasy about them coming back to work. So having a little patience, having a little empathy, and saying, hey, that you'll come back on your own time. And when you get here, you'll see we are creating a safety zone within our larger extended family as a complete company. We're creating a safety zone around you as well within our own family. We're our own little shelter and place group, I guess you could say.
And to date, you have no employees that have tested positive. Is that correct?
Well, it's interesting you asked that. Not tested positive with the virus, but we have one that just tested, has the antibodies. We believe it's gone through our organization back in January or December and February, somewhere in that time frame. We had 50 people out at that time, and that's unheard of for us to have 50 people out at the same time. They all were, very sick, and nobody knew what coronavirus was back then. And one of our managers just got tested the other day, tested positive for the antibodies, and so he had it. And
wow,
I think many more did as well. And again, they had their time off, they were paid through that time off and whatnot, sick pay and all that. So they had that financial backstop to do what they needed to do. And that's, I think, a really important factor in manufacturing, is to give people that security that you're there for. It's really important. It's important for them, or for me as well, to know that they're working, doing the things they need to do to give me financial security. So it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. So Cynthia or Delise, do either of you, or Will as well, do any of you have a question that you would want to ask Ken at this point? Go ahead, Delise.
How
You're garbled, Delise.
culture work, kind of the consistency of it, and how that's helped you guys, because I assume that you didn't just.
Looks like we lost Delise on her audio. Cynthia, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask?
It's more or less a kind of an observation, or just from the listening. You, even before Rob got there, the first round of the culture assessment showed that you guys were okay. We were wanting to get better, to go to another place and move the needle a bit. When you described what you've just described, what I heard was true leadership. You set expectations. You were very specific. You were transparent. You led them in a daily ritual that was totally open. You demonstrated enormous empathy, which I suspect that you did long before we had Monday morning meetings or everyday meetings. And the highest level for me is you demonstrated compassion. All of those things didn't just happen because of Corona. That was part of what you are as a leader, and part of where you wanted to take your organization with you. So, basically, I think you should run for president, because, that was pretty good. Vulnerability, complexity, ambiguity, you took care of all of that. I guess my question is, if I had to say to you, Ken, can you give me one thing that you thought was the strongest of what happened between the time you first started with the culture and assessment and today, the work that's been done? One thing, could you tell me one thing that made, in your opinion, a big difference?
I think the mindset was a big, that's the thing that sticks out for me, is the mindset. Our folks had, myself included, I'll admit to that, we had a mindset around certain people or our own capabilities. And that change in mindset, or the understanding that you can change your mindset and you can change people's mindset by redirecting that, was a tremendous impact to our organization, and a tremendous impact to leaders that really rose to the top after they understood that was a part of their their makeup. They weren't stuck in this position that this is the type of manager I am and I can never be anything different. They really rose to that occasion. And like I was saying, you know, I think the biggest impact for them was it hit them right here, right in the heart. You know, it was always there, just getting it to come out.
So through a certain amount of awareness, education, learning, a safe environment in which to learn, those kinds of things that were what you saw there from the beginning began to come out along, you know, with Rob's coaching and the metrics from the culture assessment to measure. So
Exactly.
it wasn't, do you think it was the most difficult shift?
I think it was relatively easy for them to make the shift. It was just a revelation. That was the biggest part of it. When they really understood that, you know, reading the material that Rob supplied and then really putting it in practice. You know, if you sit down with an individual who you've got a mindset that person's never going to be anything but what they are, they're never going to get it. I just got to keep holding their hand every day. And when you change that metric to say, wait a minute, let's work with this individual. They are capable of doing this work. They are worthy of me teaching them how to do it. And it may take a little longer, but I'm going to keep pushing forward. And when they got that first couple successes, the needle just went right off the chart. I mean, it was incredible.
So that statement in itself is something that our friend Delise, who is on the phone somewhere, is the statement that she taught me, which is, you know, what the assessment helps leaders do is take something that it may be anecdotal, that isn't even recognized that maybe there is a bias, and move it from anecdotal to empirical. Delise, I'm using your words, yes, because I like them very much. And that's exactly what you just said. We went from telling stories that we believed to unraveling the stories to taking them to a new place. Awesome.
Correct. And it was for several individuals. I'm sorry, Rob, but several individuals in the organization that were senior leaders that were our biggest hurdle in getting where we wanted to go, our biggest positive attribute to where we are going now. It's incredible, the change.
And I just want to piggyback your comment, Ken, for those that are listening, when Ken talks about change in mindset, it's going back to Carol Dweck's work around growth mindset and the belief that you can get better at anything and you are limited only by your imagination and your willingness to focus on something and put effort into it. And I would echo that you did have some amazing transformations within your team once they recognized what their potentials were. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We have a question here from Teresa James that says, Ken, any changes in future sick time policy or culture of calling in sick that your organization is considering?
We've our state or our federal requirements now require us to give an additional couple of sick. Instead of just giving 3 that we were required to give, we actually give 5 now. And again, you have in any organization of our size, or I don't care what size it is, you're going to have people that, and I don't know, there's no other way to put this, that will take advantage of that, right? They'll use it as additional vacation time. But you can't penalize the people who are really using that for worthwhile time to care for a sick child or care for themselves or for the wife or whoever, a sick parent. You can't penalize those people by saying, no, we're just going to give you what the state requires. We're going to give, like people right now, we've got 20 people we're still paying to stay home because we wanted to ramp up our business and not bring everyone back at one time and make people feel uneasy about the distancing, the cleanliness, the mask wearing and stuff, the hand washing. So we have people at home that may, I would hate to think, but maybe taking advantage of that situation. Don't want to come back to work. We'd rather just sit home and collect 40 hours pay. You have that, but you try to treat everyone as if they're not. And I think that's what the sick pay question is. We could just cut it back to 3, but we still give everybody 5, regardless if they use it as an additional vacation day or not. You have to treat everybody as if they're not taking advantage of that situation. It's hard sometimes, but you have to do that.
Ken, I know that you do this because I know your team. There are a lot of metrics that you incorporate into the business. and tracking of time, delivery times, quality, all of those things. Having access to this tool now on a going forward basis, where you're going to be able to see the trends of, are our people feeling distanced? Are they feeling connected? What are the things that they're saying that they need more of? Is first of all, is this a tool that that you see that there's going to be ongoing value from, and any additional ways that you might think that you could leverage this so that, as Will said earlier, this is that mountain without a top, that journey without an end. How do you keep your foot on the gas and never have people start to say, oh, we've arrived?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Rob. I mean, when we started this, communication was our number one issue that we had as a company. We really focused on that. We're really, even our legacy projects were all, I just recorded my message the other day for one of the legacy projects. I had to do a recording.
You want to share what that is? Do you want to share what the legacy project, what that means?
Oh, the legacy. Oh, sure. We broke off into groups from the first class and came up with ways of improving communication throughout the company. And each group took a different approach. And the one that I recorded the other day was for onboarding, to communicate to new hires. What are we all about? Who are we? What is our purpose? And what is really a purpose? What does that mean? And what are values? And what do we really value as a company? So putting that out there so that a new hire will just watch a video, but get some sense of who we are as a company. And there's 4 different legacy projects, and each one took a different tact, a different approach towards communication. But I thought that was very, very well done. The one that's for onboarding, to train people properly, to bring them into this culture, because it's unique. I mean, we hear that every day. I see text messages and emails from my people. We're very unique. I mean, they talk to the neighbor who's not working. His company's door was shut on the 24th of March, and said, "Have a nice day." A note on the door. See you later. That's all they got. There's no communication. There's no information. No help getting unemployment claim. Nothing for those people, and they're totally disconnected. They're fearful of losing their house and no paycheck coming in. But we took a completely different tact on that communication. Let's tell people what we're going to do for them. Let's be there for our employees, because they're for me every day. And it was really important to keep that going. But so this information, to answer your question, coming back around to it, is very valuable to me to keep our pulse of what is really important to the individuals that are working for us day in and day out. I got people working out in California that have never left the job site. When the state was shut down, they're away from their families. They're out there in a hotel. They're going to get kicked out of the hotel because the hotel's going to shut down because of the virus. Those people are very dedicated to me, and I'm going to dedicate to them, right? So this is a very good tool for me to be able to see that.
Do you see this as a tool that you might be able to use in leadership meetings, or even in an all-staff meeting?
Absolutely. Even on my calls, the 9:15 calls every day, which we did number 37 this morning, because we do them on the weekends as well. But even to share this data with the group, I think it's very, very valuable. Why not share it with them? Here's what you're feeling as a group, so they don't feel alone. I mean, they did the survey on their own, but what did the group think? It's important, right?
So Rob or Will, is there a graph that we can show that we could say this is an example of what we would share with our employees?
Yeah, I think feelings, I think, are, in my mind, I think are the most powerful. And I know it's a little small, but to be able to say in the green, these are the feelings that you're sensing of what's pulling us together, what's bringing us together as an organization. So these are things that we're proud of, and as managers, we're so comfortable, integrated. People feel good, they feel great, grateful, and we want to continue that momentum. But we can see particularly that there are some areas where people are feeling uneasy and stressed and anxious, and we're starting to see a rise in exhausted. And I think people are exhausted emotionally, they're exhausted mentally. So recognizing that, we appreciate it. We're going to work on taking actions to resolve that. And that's where, in the detail, if you were to look at exhausted, for example, we know that, and this is the beauty of how this ties to culture and all the work that Rob's been doing, is that exhausted, to help overcome exhausted, we need to provide you a little bit more support, make sure we're consistent in how we're supporting you, help, again, patience and understanding. But by being able to address those, and also then from a leadership perspective, that it comes down to a function of trust and alignment. So how do we align to the goals, and how do we continue to build that trust? And that's going to help people not necessarily feel less exhausted, but to be able, to your point, can get from one end of from the start to the finish, to be able to push through the exhausted and go, okay, yep, I'm tired, and be able to get to the other line. And I think the biggest value, at least, and what I like most about the visuals, is that it's a way to say, we hear you, we understand, this is what we're doing to help. And just that feedback and knowing we're there just, again, continues that connecting. And I think that's why with the calls you see such a great drive towards connecting versus distancing, and why the disparity is so great and positive, is you're pulling people together. Because you can't overcome exhausted or worried or uneasy. Those are natural feelings. But you can help people get through it, and you can make people feel collectively that they're getting through it. That's really how I see this tool really being powerful, particularly in your case, where you are many cases have to have people come work and where they may not necessarily feel totally comfortable, but you can work together to overcome that sense.
So the
Those individual steps.
Well, there's an interesting corollary here that I see, and that is, of 286 people in the company, with, I think you said 22 that are still at home. 20 that are still at home. You had 225 people that felt connected enough to participate in this pulse survey, which is phenomenal. You did this in a week, and I know that Mary Butterworth, I know you're out there somewhere. Your vice president of HR helped spearhead that communication effort. But to have that many people that are willing to have their voice heard, I think, is a compelling thing. And to be able to track that over time, how many people are willing to have their voice be heard, is a powerful tool. And Will, you had also talked about, and since this is the first week that Complete Automation has participated, Will, you had talked anecdotally about what you're seeing from a trend perspective. Once an organization has this data communicated company-wide, the impact that it can have on their beliefs, and then following on to their behaviors. What would you share with us on that?
I wish Delise could be here, because Jim Urban, he's been on one of our calls and one of our shows. But what's really exciting is that he started using that, and just in the pulse survey, it's only 3 to 4 questions. It takes like 4 minutes, 2 minutes for someone to complete. It's not a big survey, but just the aggregated data and that sense of feedback. But his organization went from feeling more disconnecting. All the emotions were disconnecting, they were distancing, they were pulling apart. And just in 2 weeks, they flip-flopped. So instead of being 45% connecting, they went to 55% connecting. So just in 2 weeks, the company felt like they were coming together, because they were able to share their needs, address those needs, and they felt, similar issues, anxious, overworked, but they were able to kind of address that, balance that. And again, I wish Delise is reviewing his subsequent numbers today. I wish you could be here to share. She's unfortunately had technical difficulties, but that's the biggest thing, is just a little bit of effort, or just a little bit of focus, a little bit of bringing people together and getting these numbers, and sharing the numbers can have a pretty big impact in just a short period of time. But what we've seen with Complete is when you sustain it and you do it over long periods of time. And that's why I think it'd be interesting to see the trends on how the emotions change and how those shift to the needs and how you address those. But when it's sustained over a long period of time, that's when you see that big disparity or change in the positive. But
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
have-
the impacts we're seeing for companies that are doing it just in the first 2 weeks are great.
Yeah, just a quick piece of data point. With our calls in the morning, every morning, we got upwards of 190 people on those calls, and several of them we had to tell them they're all gathered around one person's cell phone, so we had to tell them, look, you got a social distance here. Use your own phone or your earphones or whatever, and kind of separate a little bit, guys. So I think we had, well over 200 something people on those initial calls, because it was giving them, that communication piece. You can't over communicate. If you believe in what you believe in, you can't over communicate. You just can't. Tell people. Tell them how you feel. Tell them what you think. Tell them where you think. Give them that next step. Don't like we talked with Kevin Basics information the other day. Give them that next step. Not here's the end goal, but what do we got to get to next? Let's just take it one step at a time. And that daily call helps me as well to just set that goal for tomorrow, just to get through the next call. I don't know what's going to happen in this state. I don't know what's going to happen with this PPP loan. I don't know what's going to happen. I believe I do, but I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty out there right now. Our business is still very healthy. We got a lot of work. We got new work coming in. But I don't know what's going to happen next month, next week. All I know is what I know now. And in the morning, I try to communicate that to all our folks.
But
this will be
interesting
very helpful.
that you mentioned Kevin Basics. So you participated in a program we did last week on trust and what people need in order to really feel safe in their organizations right now. And of the 70 or 80 folks that were on that event, we had them prioritize the most significant things that they felt they needed right now in order to feel safe and feel trust within their organizations. And not surprisingly, the number one item that came up was absolute clarity around what's going on, what the expectations are, where we're going, followed very closely by a deep sense of empathy and humility and caring. And when you look at those top four items, as a I don't know, casual observer, I have dialed in and just listened to a good number, probably 7 or 8 of your morning briefings, your morning calls to the people, and you are incredibly candid. You don't sugarcoat it. You make yourself vulnerable. When you don't know, you say you don't know. When you're challenged, you say you're challenged. And the sense of caring and empathy that you demonstrate with your people comes out in your voice. And does it embarrass you to say that I've heard your voice crack?
Oh yeah.
I think it's because
No, it
you do.
doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's because you do care deeply about your people as well as the company, and that everybody in that organization knows that. Cynthia, as an expert in that field, don't look like a deer in the headlights.
Which field, Rob, are we talking about here?
This field of organizational effectiveness, what additional observation would you make, or what additional question might you ask?
I don't have another question. I'm kind of trying to take it all in. But for me, it's always been, for Rob talks a lot about trust, and we know that exists in your organization. For me, it's always been about how clear is the message? How clear is the message so somebody can make a decision to take a step to move forward? What enables them to make that decision is clarity around the message. And I think that you are very clear and consistent. When I look at this performance index on the right, Will, so the performance index are opportunities that Ken has moving forward to continue to climb forever up the mountain. It says consistency, focus, nothing, patience, understanding. Those 3, 4, 5, those 5 issues are where there is opportunity to have more clarity, where there is opportunity to shift some things and continue to move that needle to a positive.
What they highlight is their categories of need. So what they do is they're opportunities because they are correlated to need. So for everybody who said that they were exhausted, for example, what and it's a weighted relative weight because it takes in all the data from lots of different areas in order to get the correlation. But when you look at exhausted, when people say I'm exhausted, and then you look at what do they say that I need, it's support, consistency, focus, patience, and understanding. And there's quite a few people that put nothing when they're exhausted, which is always kind of interesting. And this gets to like what Delise talks a little bit about. And I don't want to put words in her mouth, but it's nothing, just people are checking out. In other words, am I just checked out? You know, I don't need anything. I'm tired. I don't need anything. So then is it a much of a need? And that's one of those areas that to look at. But when you're looking at as an organization or as a leader or as a mid-manager, if I'm going to try to help overcome exhausted, because that's a big issue in my organization, how do I approach it? And a lot of it is just recognizing that the people themselves are saying, well, to help me overcome exhausted, I feel like I need support, or keep supporting me. I need consistency, I need focus. And oftentimes that's because people are trying to do too many things. Patience, which comes from, okay, timeline, give me a little bit of break, I'll get there. And that's where the understanding. So what this really does is it's meant to be a tool set that says, okay, based upon how people are feeling, of all the people that we've been gathering data from and aggregating the data against, these are the 6 things that come back, and this is the relative weight to help address that exhaustion. So it gives you little things you can do, and that's the whole point of this. And I think you brought it up in Kevin Basic's point. Yeah, it's great to talk about the dream or the BHAG and all this stuff at the end, but how do I get from where I am right now to where I need to be next week, next month? And these little things allow you to continue to move the needle and provide you the direction and say, okay, look, we heard that you're exhausted. Like the biggest one for complete is unease. So they're uneasy and uneasy. And again, it's support, delegation, and freedom are the big 3. So, I'm a little uneasy. I need the support, but also give me the freedom and the delegation to let me go do my job. So those are kind of how it works.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but one of the things that you said, people checking out and being exhausted, talking to my folks, they just stop watching the news, right? Because it's exhausting to watch the news lately. And I do that for them. I watch the news, I read the information, and I try to regurgitate some of that on my 9:15 call. Good, bad, indifferent, data numbers. I give them some of what's going on in the world and what the president had to say, what the governor said, where are we going, so they don't have to. They can check out, and it's okay because they'll get some information in the morning from the morning call. Because I get exhausted with it too, but it's my part of my piece of the puzzle. I've got to do that. I feel obligated to do that because they do what they do for me.
So if there's anybody in the audience that has a question that they'd like to ask of Ken, you can go ahead and type your questions in on your toolbar, and we can go ahead and talk about those for the last few minutes.
Or maybe Delise has something she wants to ask. She could type in the toolbar. Can she do that well?
We lost her.
Yeah, Delise was always going to be a challenge with where she's at, and it looks like her internet let her down a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
With all of us on these calls and stuff, the internet's just bogged right down to that.
Yes. Well,
one more comment, Rob, if I could.
Yes, please.
Just something that popped into my mind as well. It really, one of the things that I started out with on this, and it really never was, like from the 24th on, it never was about the money. If I may put it that way, it's not about the company making more money or us putting more in our pocket. It was always about the goal in mind for us to get to the other side as a company, keeping the company healthy, and them to get to the other side being healthy as individuals. So I just never even thought about that other side of it. When we decided to keep paying our people and not put them on unemployment, because we had everybody pretty much was off work. There was very few physically working. And we just decided it's not about, it's about, let's just maintain health on the other side. If we can maintain health and keep paying everybody, then we're going to keep paying everybody. So it really never was about the money. And it always, in my experience over time and over the years I've been doing this, it always comes back around to the positive when you don't start with that.
Well, I would just like jump right out there on a limb and just say, Ken, if it had been about the money all the way along from the time you met Rob to today, you wouldn't be talking to us today, because your chart wouldn't look anything like this. Your culture would
It's just
be a totally different arena.
I hadn't even thought of it until just now. That thought never even entered my mind.
So a question just came up here, Ken, asking from Tony Clubb. How important do you think it is for the top leader of the organization to be the role model?
Oh, extremely. You know, showing up at the office, it was tough on I didn't get to see my grandkids for 3 weeks because I went to the office. But I had to go. There was no other choice. You know?
So based on everything that we've talked about over the last hour, is there anything that's jumped out at you, Ken, that you said, okay, you know what? This is going to be something that's going to be central to our strategy, our culture strategy, as we continue to move forward on this journey?
I think, you know, the communication link we have now is the best it's ever been, and I think we just need to keep that going. You know, people ask me, are you going to keep doing the calls? Or are you going to stop once the stay-at-home order is lifted? I intend to keep going with them. It's a good way for me to communicate what's going on in the company. You know, we just got a nice order the other day, and I made sure everybody knew about it this morning. Where typically the rank and file, so to speak, don't ever see that. You know, they just see it when it comes out in the shop and they're building it. They don't celebrate in those things. So I think it's really important to keep that communication link going. I think it's been very valuable for me personally, and I think it's been very valuable. The feedback I'm getting is just phenomenal from people reaching out to me. We also, as another note, we put on our website, we put a special page for our employees, which we started out with things like recipes, because everybody's home cooking, right? How many people cook anymore? So we've started putting recipes out there that people had, that they sent in to us, and pictures of new babies that were just born during this whole crisis, and information about our cleaning process, and information about our essential letters. We put them all out there on the website so people can browse this stuff. Recordings of all my calls. If they're not able to get on the call because we have a second shift running, if they're working, they can listen to the call the next day and just click on it and listen to it. So that page has been very valuable too, to keep pushing that communication out to the folks so they can see it and not just hear it on the call.
So that's a perfect example of where the virus has made a change for the positive. I mean, you had the ability to do all of those things before.
No question.
No question.
No question.
Just like we all had the ability to do virtual calls, and today I'm having the first virtual call ever with my family, right? My extended family.
Right.
So we always had the ability to do that, but the vision and the ability to execute it, to recognize mostly that's the most important thing to keep this culture as strong as it was, if not stronger, or to keep climbing the mountain, as Rob says. That's a perfect demonstration of saying, okay, so, you know, this wasn't so good, but look what we got from it. And the one thing that I learned from my friend Rob was, you know, this type of situation that we're experiencing today will require a different level and quality of leader. And I guess we could just say, Ken, that, you know, you're already ahead of the curve. You know, you're an overachiever in that. So you're doing great.
So
thank you for saying. I don't feel like it sometimes, but I keep trying. That's the main thing. You keep plugging along every day.
Yeah, it can get lonely now.
So I've got one more question, and then then there are a couple more questions from the audience. So you posted a lot on the website that was very informational, but also connecting. To what extent, if at all, have you incorporated either gratitude or appreciation practices or shout outs for those people that have gone above and beyond to own a little bit more than their share?
Yeah, every day I do a gratitude every single day, and 37 calls. I haven't run out of gratitude yet, so I intend to keep going with it. And you know, whatever pops into my mind that morning, like the other day was the field crew. I mean, there's guys that are, again, away from their families. They're living in hotels. They're getting kicked out of hotels. They're in states that are getting shut down. They don't know where they're going to be able to get their next meal because they really can't cook in a hotel. It's a very, very stressful situation, but they keep doing it day in and day out. So it's just those types of things. Whatever pops into my mind that morning of what sticks out as somebody that's gone above and beyond. Gratitude this morning was for, what did I have as my gratitude this morning? I can't remember. Being able to be at work, being able to work. And there's so many people out there, right, don't have that ability right now. They're stuck in their house or their apartment, and they don't have a work to go back to right now. We're very fortunate we do.
Is this something
trickling
down? Are those practices trickling down so that people are expressing that and calling people out for doing good things all across the company?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe so. Yes. I think it's happening in different ways, but yes, I see it happening all across the company.
So here's a question from Jim Courtney. Helping employees feel comfortable returning to work was a central part of your process. How did you go about that?
Well, I think it's just that confidence that we are good all in this together. We're going to be wearing masks. We're going to be creating a cleaning process. We're going to be cleaning products. I mean, who could find cleaning products when this all started? No one could. So we fanned out, and our whole organization fanned out to try to find. We found a chemical supplier that sold us 200 or 110 gallons of hand sanitizer. We were able to come across in 55-gallon drums. So these types of things, just making people, we're in this together. I'm going there too. I'm at the office, and I'm wearing a mask. I'm having to get my temperature scanned when I go through the door in the morning. And these are the things we're going to do to keep you safe. And if you don't feel safe, feel comfortable in saying you don't feel safe. And what is it about it that you don't feel safe doing? What can we do better as a group? What should we be doing? And a lot of good things came out of that too. Good suggestions, simple things, wiping down the handle on the coffee pot. I mean, great idea. We didn't think of it, but somebody did, and they were able to share that information, and we started doing that on a regular basis. So we used, people that were on the floor before as cleaners because they stepped up and said, yeah, I'll do it. I'm working, you're paying me to work. I'll come in and I'll start cleaning. So it's just that attitude of we're all in this together. We're all going to be our little shelter-in-place group. We're going to circle our wagons together as a group. It really strengthened the organization. So it helped to get them comfortable coming back. And once you get past that, one of my employees came in. I don't mean to keep going, but and said to me, walked into my office or in the doorway of my office, so we kept our distance, and said, I was really freaked out about coming in today. I couldn't even come through the front door. But now that I'm in here, I feel perfectly safe.
That's great. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. So we're at the top of the hour, and I think here's a comment from another one from Teresa James that I think is a great one to finish on. Lots of great karma there. Well done, and thank you for sharing your organization and your experiences, Ken. Thank you for being there. This was wonderful. Will, you want to close us out?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun to work with your numbers and work with your data, just to see, just how much a little bit of focus over a long period of time can really make an impact. So that's it for this week's session. So thank you again so much.
I love it, Ken.
You owe me. You owe me. I got you.
That's because it's more than arm's reach over on the counter here. But I've got it. I've got it within 2 arms reach.
You owe me.
I do, and I'll pay up. I look forward to that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. And next week we'll continue to look at the numbers, and we'll dig deeper in how to take what we're learning and be able to turn them into small little action steps that you can take to make a big difference with a little bit of effort over long periods of time. Thanks again, everybody, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks,
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.